Liu Ying's new job is at a company that specializes in online videos, documenting good deeds on the streets in a documentary style. It sounds righteous, but in reality, there aren't that many good deeds. The boss has to fake it, hiring people to do bad things so the protagonist can save the day at the crucial moment. After all, the audience just wants to see a thrilling turnaround. Whether the people in the story actually get help, no one cares. Don't think we're just talking about movies. It's the same in real life. The news stories you see are rarely true. Even so, this is how things are. The show still didn't get many views. Exhausted, she accidentally fell asleep at the subway station. When she woke up, she found her camera bag was missing. This is unacceptable. She quickly looked up and searched carefully. Fortunately, the thief hadn't gone far. Liu Ying shouted for help while chasing the thief. Unfortunately, no one around was willing to lend a hand. Liu Ying could only chase after it, but she accidentally ran onto the road. Just as she was about to be hit by a truck, a man in a floral shirt suddenly appeared and pulled her away. She took a closer look and realized she had heard about this man from her colleagues. He called himself Superman and often did good deeds in the area. Liu Ying seemed to grasp at a lifeline and immediately sought help. Superman, as rumored, quickly assisted Liu Ying and charged forward. This Superman indeed seemed to have some superpowers. Although he couldn't fly or had immense strength, his stamina was extraordinary. He soon caught up with the thief. But when faced with the thief's attack, Superman didn't fight back. He just kept entangling the thief. Seeing that his opponent was too troublesome, the thief had no choice but to throw down the camera and flee. When Liu Ying caught up, Superman was lying on the ground and gracefully shook her hand. Then, he turned and left with his hands in his pockets, without a trace of reluctance. This made Liu Ying curious. Over the years, she had photographed many good deeds, but most of those people had some kind of pursuit. Even if it's not for money or fame, it's nice to enjoy others' gratitude. No one has ever been like Superman, who seems to help others as naturally as eating or drinking. Liu Ying became interested in Superman. If she made a show with him as the main character, it would definitely be a hit. She immediately called her assistant and started observing the places where Superman usually appeared, beginning to document his daily life. According to legend, Superman uses his superpowers to help the elderly carry things, assist scavengers in moving trash, and rush to stand between traffic and pedestrians before the red light goes out. He also disguises himself as a cardboard box at school gates, waiting for perverts to appear and then stopping them. These actions don't seem to have much to do with superpowers. It's clear to anyone that this Superman doesn't seem very smart. But this makes it easier for Liu Ying to film him. Normal people are sensitive to cameras behind them, but Superman is not. He also enthusiastically answered Liu Ying's. However, due to kryptonite implanted in his brain by cosmic villains, his superpowers are sealed. Whenever he gets injured or sick, he suffers from severe headaches, which can only be relieved by chewing gum he carries with him. Despite this, Superman continues to fulfill his duties. When he heard that Liu Ying and her assistant believed he was Superman, he was deeply moved, as it seemed that few people in the world truly understood him. Generously, he invited Liu Ying to form a superhero team to fight against the world's evils. Liu Ying agreed without hesitation, as it would save a lot of effort in filming. From this day on, Liu Ying began to closely observe. Every morning, Superman would stand on his hands in the street, pushing the earth with all his might to move it further from the sun and prevent global warming from worsening. During school hours, he would stand by the roadside, directing traffic to ensure children cross safely. He also waited in underground passages to help disabled people up the stairs. By noon, Superman would be stationed at the corner where dumping garbage is prohibited, stopping those who try to take the easy way out by littering. Wherever there's a need, Superman appears in time. He also fights against the balloon aliens invading Earth, even though they are just balloons used to attract business to gas stations. But Superman doesn't know that. He just sees danger and instinctively rushes in. Of course, Superman isn't always alone. Every day after school, he would meet his little fans in the park and tell them stories about how he used his superpowers to fight crime that day. These kids were lucky to encounter a real hero while they still believed in goodness. Despite Superman's busy schedule, Liu Ying, who was following him all day, was somewhat dissatisfied. Such a bland story won't get any views. So, to make the show more effective, she followed her boss's old tricks and started faking things to create an impact. As expected, what everyone hates is not betraying their ideals, but that their ideals don't sell for a good price. Liu Ying used to strongly oppose her boss's methods. She arranged for someone to have their bag stolen in front of Superman, fully recording the process of Superman catching the thief. She even hired professional stunt actors to stage a car accident in front of Superman to see him rush the injured to the hospital. The bus was full of onlookers cheering for Superman. Of course, their smiles showed that they were not moved, but just enjoying the spectacle. After Liu Ying's efforts, the program was completed. However, Liu Ying wasn't very happy. Watching the clueless Superman in the show, she felt a bit awkward for the first time at work. She still took the film back to the company. Everyone in the company thought the film could be a big hit. Who could resist watching a fool do foolish things during their leisure time? The company held a celebration banquet for Liu Ying. She vented all her grievances and slept until noon the next day. She naturally felt that Superman was no longer useful and ignored his calls. But when she opened her eyes again, she found Superman standing in her living room, kindly reminding her to lock the safety. Unable to resist Superman's persistent persuasion, she had no choice but to continue the journey with him. They arrived at a street corner. Superman was poking around the sewer. He had fought a monster here last night, but now it was nowhere to be seen. Lu Ying, fighting off her hangover-induced nausea, was mocked by a little girl living nearby. Sister, are you pregnant? Did you marry Uncle Superman? Listening to Superman and the child's laughter, Lu Ying felt helpless. The little girl was one of Superman's few good friends. Despite her mother's disapproval, the girl still liked to secretly spend time with Superman. They have a world that no one else can disturb. Right after the little girl left, Superman suddenly had a severe headache, but he ran out of gum. In pain, he passed out. Lu Ying immediately took Superman to the hospital. Unexpectedly, there was actually something in his brain. Is there really kryptonite? The doctor wasn't sure what it was exactly. To diagnose the condition, further tests were needed. However, Superman seemed very afraid of doctors and resisted anyone in a white coat. Lu Ying had to ask the doctors to wear blue coats and pretend to be blue-haired aliens from a mutant hospital. Only then did Superman reluctantly accept the treatment. After being discharged, Lu Ying became curious about the man in front of her. Like others, she once considered Superman a joke. But this incident made her realize he is a real person. So, she directly asked Superman, because of the kryptonite, you have no superpowers. Why are you still so determined to help others? Unexpectedly, Superman looked as if it was only natural. Isn't it right to help others? If we stop helping others, we will lose the ability to do so. When he said this, his eyes sparkled. Lu Ying also felt the purity in his gaze, that intense and passionate heart of a true hero. In that moment, the intense and passionate heart of a child. It seems that Superman pried open a corner. Lu Ying and Superman arrived at a ruin. This place is Superman's home. The walls are covered with Superman's grand plans to save the world. Watching the strange man who kept talking to himself, Lu Ying felt a mix of emotions, unsure if it was pity or admiration. Later, Superman and the little girl started playing a game on the rooftop. They were playing badminton, but the shuttlecock was imaginary. Watching the two happily under the sunset, Lu Ying took out her camera. She decided to seriously capture Superman's real daily life and share this pure and touching moment with the world. At that moment, the little girl woke up the daydreaming Lu Ying. Hey, can you help us pick up the ball? Lu Ying looked at the two expectant faces, awkwardly bent down to pick up the imaginary shuttlecock, and threw it to Superman. Watching him swing his racket forcefully, sending the shuttlecock towards the sun, Lu Ying seemed to share in Superman's happiness. But just as she was lost in thought, Superman stood at the edge of the rooftop. Lu Ying immediately stopped him, saying, "You still have kryptonite in your brain. You can't fly. You can only fly once the stone is removed." Superman was very happy because Lu Ying truly believed he could fly. He even promised Lu Ying, "When that day comes, I'll take you flying with me." A few days later, Lu Ying and Superman attended a celebration event together. Superman was very happy because the place was filled with aliens like him. He greeted them like old friends, shaking hands and hugging. Then, he went to the center stage, where enthusiastic spectators gathered. Superman struck a flying pose and leaped down. The crowd below cooperatively lifted him above their heads. Lu Ying, who was filming from behind, stumbled and fell. Thus, they flew forward together. The audience cooperatively lifted him above their heads. Lu Ying, who was filming from behind, also fell but was carried forward by the crowd. They held hands, and with everyone's help, it felt like they were truly flying together. Superman looked at Lu Ying with excitement, as if silently boasting, "See, I can really fly." Superman's delusions always came suddenly. Facing a garbage-handling excavator, Superman mistook it for a monster and directly charged at it, engaging in a fight with the excavator alien. He even smashed the windshield with a rock, disrupting municipal work. Soon, the police arrived and drove Superman away with a high-pressure water gun. Since then, Superman has disappeared. No one knows where he went. Lu Ying went to Superman's house to look for clues and unexpectedly found medicine from a mental hospital. She went to that mental hospital and found that it seemed to be full of people like Superman. Lu Ying asked the director what they planned to do with Superman. The director said there are two options. One is to maintain the status quo because Superman's help to others far. The other is to restore Superman's memory, but it seems that Superman is very resistant to this. Lu Ying often had conflicts with doctors. She found Superman in the back mountain. Superman was very happy to see his teammate here, but Lu Ying was worried. She wanted Superman to live a happy life and become a normal person. So she tied Superman to a tree and told him, "You are just sick. Once you regain your memory, everything will be fine." Hearing Lu Ying's words, Superman felt very disappointed and angry. No one else believed him. Only Lu Ying did. But now, Lu Ying has betrayed him too. Superman, in his anger, lunged at Lu Ying but was captured by the doctor as a dangerous individual. Now, the doctor had a valid reason to forcibly restore Superman's memory. Under the influence of medication, Superman gradually regained his memory. His real name was Yongqiang. When he was young, his father was killed in a riot, and a bullet lodged in his brain, causing frequent headaches and even severe epilepsy. But even so, Yongqiang continued to live a resilient life, getting married and having a daughter, feeling extremely happy. However, one day during an outing, a sudden car accident trapped his wife and daughter under the car. Desperately, Yongqiang called for help, but the surrounding crowd was indifferent. He had to get the fire extinguisher himself. His daughter always believed her father was a superhero, and that if she counted to 100, the superhero would come to save them. But just as he was about to use the fire extinguisher, he was struck by a headache and... As the explosion engulfed his daughter, her counting abruptly stopped. This suffocating memory filled Yongqiang with despair. He could only lie on the hospital bed and wail. The doctors around him were like the onlookers from that time. Yongqiang had recovered. He finally became an ordinary person. When he sees someone having a seizure, he just glances like everyone else and continues eating his meal. Are you a superhero?
전 평범한 사람일 뿐이에요.
Yongcheong was discharged from a hospital. He went near the little girl's house, but a fire had broken out there. Seeing a young man trapped under a car, Yongcheong's face showed only the indifference of a passerby. Flames engulfed the entire building, but the little girl was still trapped on the roof. Her mother desperately pleaded with the people around to help, tugging at Yongcheong's clothes. Yet, Yongcheong remained standing with the crowd. Yes, he is just an ordinary person. He can get hurt, and be afraid of danger too. But seeing the desperate mother rush into the building, Yongcheong seemed to remember something. There was once a little girl who was full of despair in front of him, and he could do nothing. This moment is just like that moment. When Lu Ying arrived, Superman was pouring water on himself. Lu Ying was surprised. Aren't you cured? The firefighters arrived quickly. You don't need to face the danger. But Superman didn't stop. There was some fear in his eyes, but the light in his eyes did not go out. Superman handed his wallet to Lu Ying, saying it contained his final mission. Then, Superman rushed into the fire. In the suffocating silence, he carried his unconscious mother out. Then, he approached the car, shouting with effort. Superman truly has superpowers. The heavy car was lifted. Superman arrives at the room where the little girl is trapped. The high temperature has turned the door lock red hot, but no worries. Superman cools it down with his icy breath and successfully opens the lock. He then leaps out of the window, with the girl in his arms. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he places the girl on the ground and then soars into the sky. Superman has to continue his mission, but we all know that there's no such thing as superpowers in this world. The car was lifted by everyone together. The door lock was forced open by Yongcheong, enduring the burns on his hands. Facing the raging fire behind him, he knew he couldn't go back the way he came. So he leaped out of the window, cushioning the fall with his own body, hitting the ground hard. The little girl was unharmed, but the road was stained with his blood. But the smile of Superman remains untainted. At the end of the story, Lu Ying opens Superman's wallet and finds an organ donation card. After completing his final task of helping humanity, he leaves this not-so-beautiful planet. People are always in a rush, too busy to care. Over time, they learn to watch and ignore. We all know that individual power is weak and not enough to change the world completely. But some believe that as long as there is action, the future can be changed. Perhaps more people struggle on the line between action and inaction. They don't have the extraordinary power of superheroes, but they are not completely numb or heartless. Sometimes it only takes one person to take the initiative and